Hey guys, this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time and I've just never had the opportunity to do it, and that's planting a Three Sisters traditional Native American garden. Alright, first thing I want to do is give you an overview so you see how this is going to work, and it's going to require a little bit of imagination. So just imagine that this square I drew on the ground is a 10 by 10 foot area. What we're going to do is we're going to stagger the plantings, and we're going to plant corns and beans here, and then we're going to go 5 feet and we're going to plant some more corns and beans. We're going to go 5 feet more and plant more corns and beans. Then we're going to come 5 feet in this direction, corn and beans, 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 corn and beans. And then in between those, we're going to plant squash. Squash, 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 squash. Now there's lots of different ways you can do this, so don't get hung up on the details. Every area is different and every way can be different. There's no one certain way to do this. But let's imagine that this is one of those corn and bean spots that we're going to plant. Now, one thing to keep in mind is we want to keep in mind the direction of north, which is this way, because you want to respect the true north there. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to plant a corn here, a corn seed here, a corn seed here, and a corn seed here. And the time to plant these is when the leaf on the dogwood shrub or tree is as big as a squirrel's ear. Now we've planted our corn. Once the corn is about 6 inches high or as tall as our hand, we're going to want to plant a bean in each of the 4 corners apart from the corn. So we have corn, 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 and then we have a bean, 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 bean. Alright, now 1 week after we plant those beans, we're going to want to plant our squash. And we're going to want to plant 3 squash seeds. 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. So now if we look at this from an overview, we have our corn and beans in this hill, and we have our squash in this hill, and they're about 2.5 feet apart. And then right over here, we would have another corn and bean patch. And what that would do is it would set the corn and beans 5 feet apart from each other, and it would also set the squash 5 feet apart from each other. Now, it's awful windy today. I hope that piece of foam on my mic is keeping that buffeting noise from the wind down. But now that I've given you an overview, we're actually going to go right into the garden, and I'm going to show you the actual planting of the squash. I want to show you one more thing. Now, I mentioned that I staggered these plants, and that means I have corn here, and then I stagger it, and I have corn on the other side, and then I have corn here. And then what I'll do is I'll have squash there, squash here, and squash here. And it'll extend for 10 feet, which is 2 of these beds, but mine actually goes right on down for 25 feet, and it even extends over into this other bed a little bit. Again, you don't have to be particular with this, you know, whatever works for you. So you can see here, once my corn was 6 inches high, I went ahead and planted my beans, and now it's 1 week later after I planted the beans, and there's one coming up right there. And I'm going to go ahead and plant the squash right here. Now traditionally you'd use a digging stick, so that's what I'm going to do. And all I'm really going to do is just kind of rough up the ground where I'm going to plant these squash. And another thing is, you want to, when you plant your corn, you want them to be about 6 inches apart from one another. And for the squash, 4 to 6 inches. Again, you know, you really don't have to be all particular with this. I just kind of use my hand as a measure, and as long as it's within the space of my hand, that's good. So we rough this all up. I don't know if you can see, but all these what look like weeds are actually more companion plants. These are all marigolds that I broadcast sown. I just threw them out here and they grew. And this here's a little volunteer tomatillo plant. And these here are icicle radishes, which are another companion plant for squash. I'm going to use a variety of squash and melons and different cucumber family plants, gourd family plants. But I'm just going to take one squash seed. In this case, it's a pumpkin, which is traditional. A winter squash is what you want, so pumpkin, butternut. Just put one seed in each of the 3 locations, about a 1/2 inch or so down, and lightly tamp the soil. And within a week or so, those should be coming up. And this Three Sisters garden will be complete. Now, I didn't show the corn and stuff because I wanted to wait until I had a feel for this before I showed you guys. Alright, well that pretty much wraps it up for the Three Sisters garden. And again, I think it's important to keep in mind that there's no one certain way to do this. Depending on where you live, you may want to start your plants in a depression if it's a really dry area, and then put dirt on them as they grow so their root zone is lower, so it's in a moisture area. Another thing, and I did quite a bit of research on this before I just jumped into it because I wanted to be successful, and also I wanted to get a bit of the history of it and find out what's behind the Three Sisters garden. And what it really is it's companion planting, and you're planting 3 plants together that can grow in the same location year after year after year. And traditionally, you were growing these crops not to be used throughout the season, but to be harvested at the end of the season and dried and stored throughout the winter in times where you didn't have access to other vegetables. So with that in mind, the real Three Sisters garden used flint corn or dent corn, any type of field corn that grows really tall, with a strong stalk to support the beans, and the cobs would be left on the stalk to dry so that you would grind that kernels up into cornmeal or flour. And then the beans you would use would be runner beans, because the corn is the support for the beans. They run up it and they grow on the corn itself. You wouldn't want to use bush beans because it would be kind of defeating the logic of the Three Sisters garden. And you would also want to use winter squash, any type of winter squash, pumpkins, butternut squash, any type of squash that can be harvested late in the season and stored at room temperature for long periods of time. Because the idea behind the Three Sisters garden is you're growing food for winter storage without refrigeration or modern means. And that's, to me, that's the most important part of the Three Sisters garden, is that you're able to grow 3 different crops that all complement each other. They all provide different nutrients for the body. You're able to grow those crops for winter storage without modern means, which is refrigeration or electricity or things of that nature. And also, you're able to grow the same crop in the same location year after year after year. Because the way it works is the corn grows up. The corn is the oldest sister. You plant her first. She grows up and she provides support for the beans, which is the middle-aged sister, and then a week later you plant the youngest sister, which is the squash, and the squash provides shade to help keep weeds down and hold moisture into the soil. Now also the beans will provide nitrogen for the plants the following season as well. Traditionally, when you dug your hole with your digging stick to plant your corn and your squash, in the bottom of the hole you would throw a fish, and that fish would provide nutrients for the plants for that season. And I didn't do that, but that would be a really good thing to do if you have fish available to put in each one of these holes. But that's pretty much it. I think those are the most important things to keep in mind with the Three Sisters. The measurements and spacing, I think that can all be varied, whether you're planting it in a hill or in a depression or in a bed or rows or whatever. That all is up in the air, and it really doesn't matter except for your location and your own personal style of growing. So hopefully this helps. I'll keep you guys updated as the season progresses, and we'll see how this Three Sisters garden goes. I've got two different gardens. This one, I'm already, I'm setting myself up for failure because I'm growing Golden Bantam sweet corn. But everything else is by the book. Native Americans, they didn't have books, they didn't have a written language. They used art and poems and stories to record their history. And, in all honesty, most of that history is gone because of the way of man or whatever. But I think we can bring it back, and hopefully this is something that'll turn out good, and hopefully you guys get something out of it. I mean, hopefully more people try doing a Three Sisters garden. I think it's a good way to utilize space in the garden. I'm using about a 12 by 25 foot spot here for this Three Sisters garden, and I have, I believe, 112 corn plants, 112 bean plants, and 28 hills of squash in this 12 by 25 foot area. So if everything grows good and it's not attacked by animals and bugs, there should be a pretty good harvest. So that's it. I'll keep you updated, like I said, as the season goes along. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all the comments and support. Alright, so just to review, you need a digging stick. That's the only tool you need. And you need to make some 10-foot beds. Well, you don't need to make them. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You want to space your corn and beans 5 feet apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to space your squash in between the corn, and you want to do it 5 feet apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to plant your corn one hand apart in any direction. Same thing with the beans. And you want to do the same with your squash, about 1 hand width or 1 hand apart. It doesn't have to be exact. And an easy way to measure the depth to plant is just to take your finger and poke it in the soil until it meets the first knuckle. And that's how deep to plant. One other thing I should mention, and I don't want to sound like a know-it-all, but I did do a lot of research on this, and I looked at a lot of other people's experiences with this Three Sisters garden, and the people that said it didn't work were people that grew bush beans and summer squash and sweet corn, or any combination of. And the people that said it did work used flour corn, pole beans or runner beans and winter squash, because that was the traditional Three Sisters garden. And you know, I'm deviating from the norm too. So all I can really say is, you know, if you want it to work, do it the way it's supposed to be done. If you don't care if it works, then, you know, grow sweet corn and summer squash and bush beans, and it may still turn out good for you, it may not. But I think if you want something to work, you need to do it the right way. And you know, I'm not doing it 100% the right way, but still, it's important to know the right way. That way, if it doesn't work, you can go back and you can say, well, I did it the wrong way, that's why it didn't work. That way you're not knocking the Three Sisters approach because you did it the wrong way. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for the comments and support.